if everything is going okay, you should be able to hear my voice out there on the internet. And if everything is working correctly, you should be able to see, if you wish, the captions appearing under this. If you click the button, that it gives you captions. My captioning software is telling me that it's coming out, so it looks like we're in the clear. All right, in that case, I will switch over so you can see my lovely face, because everyone knows that's the important part here. Actually, it's more important to see. I always point the wrong direction first. That way is the actual important thing, which is Lore Link, of which I am Mark Della-Croce, the Lore Link product lead. And I am here today to talk about the fact that I am back from vacation. I am rested. I have had a good time, had a wonderful trip, enjoyed myself, basically played games, basically relaxed, all that fun stuff. But now I have come back smack dab in the middle of spooky season. I was in the Caribbean for a couple of weeks, so coming back and being in the middle of coming back from warm air and desert beaches, it's not desert beaches, and island beaches, and suddenly coming back to cold air and leaves turning and all that fun stuff was a bit of a whiplash, but it's been nice to get back to it. You miss it a little bit when you're like, oh, maybe we should be seeing trees changing colors, and now instead it's 80 degrees and you're worrying about sunblock. It just didn't feel right for the middle of October. But we are in the middle of October. We are in the middle of spooky season. And so we're going to go ahead and plan out what some of you may be planning out there if you're planning your own Halloween horror games. We're going to go with a World of Darkness game. Basically, fun fact, World of Darkness is actually the first game I played in college, which, given that I went to a Christian university, is even more ironic than you might think. But I basically ran into a group of friends who were interested in trying out a new system, and maybe because we were at a Christian university, they wanted to play something a little bit more daring, a little bit more unusual. So rather than the basic D&D and other games that I've been playing growing up, yes, we rebelled, we experimented, and basically we experimented with Vampire the Masquerade, which, and that my nickname, one of my nicknames and handles, as they always say, your nickname is kind of what stuck to you because it's what you picked at a young age, and then you're stuck with it for the rest of your life. So it's, your email handle and your Twitter handle, or your AIM handle, for those of you who remember. AOL was my first vampire character in that game. So I have fond memories of this system. But the real reason why we're here to talk about World of Darkness is that I also wanted to address it, much the same reason why last time we talked about Legend of the Five Rings, is that when you're looking at, if you're looking at everything from just a basic D&D or Pathfinder type reference, yep, basically you end up with a worldview that gives you a real focus on, basically all campaigns are going to look kind of similarly, especially if you're running pre-made stuff from D&D or from Pathfinder. You're going to end up with basically some role-playing sections in between sections of where the majority of what you're going to end up doing is walking from basically from room to room, encountering stuff in rooms, or maybe you're going from place to place in a castle, or maybe you're going from place to place on a world map. If you're doing some of the Pathfinder, or I think D&D has started doing as well, they're what they call, what has gotten the nickname Hexploring, in terms of exploring places on a map. But there is a whole different world of role-playing games out there. Everything from basically some really, really light one-page ones, which have become popular, up into including some of the bigger and more grander ones, like the diceless system of Amber, the superhero systems of Champions, and things like that, which are ridiculously math heavy. To some of the, basically some games like basically L5R and World of Darkness in particular, which definitely have more of a focus on setting up interactions with players and storytelling. To put a fine point on it, storytelling with your characters and your players, and building out a story that occurs. Last week we talked about L5R, or last week it was much longer than that, about 4 weeks ago now. Last planning session, I guess I should say, which sadly we don't have a VOD of. Otherwise, I would redirect you to, because I, the person in charge of the VODs, forgot to download it. And sadly, as Twitch switched to a 7-day archive system, and we are not currently enough, we have lost that archive to the person in charge. Yes, as much as anyone is in charge of anything. Um, Thank you for reminding me to turn the stream closed captioning on, which is in fact already on. Cool. I'm glad that worked. But basically the L5R games are basically those ideas of a storytelling game, which essentially where the L5R game was very much focused on working in a event timeline type system where the characters are kind of, rather than shepherded from place to place, essentially they're kind of shepherded from event to event. They met a peasant on the road, then they go to a hotel, they have a tea time where they have a tea ceremony with a ghost, then they're at a championship, then they're at a bar fight, then they're at basically, and they kind of move through. And we talked about how all of those events kind of link together in terms of a timeline. And how LoreLink had basically, we introduced that timeline system in LoreLink to help deal with planning out games of those sorts. So that much like we have our location feature, where you could build out all of your locations in a map, and so you can link all of them together, so you could easily see um, basically a campaign world, and then you have the different locations located underneath that. Um, or in the case of the Academy adventure that we had, you had the Spelljammer Academy, and then you had all those different administration things underneath them. What we did instead with the Topaz Championship is we broke it down into basically the scenes, which you can see here. And if you go to the timeline and you look at the scene, we broke it down into a series of events that were all basically all sort of like basically related next to each other, and you could go through. And now that they're all, because they are all in the timeline, you can uh click through to that and link to it and jump to it, and you can use that timeline. You can add sub timelines, associate sessions with it, break it up by intervals, much like we did with locations, where you can kind of group things together and deal with it from that sense. You could deal with that same thing from an event perspective, so that you can best uh, keep track of how everything is going, and you can use that system to jump between them, and you can keep track of, like, okay, I know we need to go from here to here to here, and I can keep track of those. I can use the sessions to put all of those into a sessions, um, and go from there. Um, so basically, that's kind of how L5R set that up. And so the real reason why I wanted to do World of Darkness, in addition to it being spooky season, as it were, that's appropriate for that time, is I wanted to show a slightly different take that comes from what the World of Darkness system kind of ends up doing. World of Darkness, originally developed by White Wolf, then Onyx Path, and then White Wolf again. Basically, we were just discussing a little bit before we started the stream just how much they've changed names and changed handles over the years, much like how D&D has gone from TSR to Wizards of the Coast and now is a Hasbro product, et cetera, et cetera. They've had a couple different hands over a couple different editions, but the base of it still is the same, in the fact that you're dealing with a system which is based on telling a collaborative story with your players. And especially depending on which one you pick, they have lots of different, they focus in on the classics of horror. So you have modern vampires, you have modern werewolves, you have modern wizards, and then they kind of went a little bit crazier and through just about everything. You have modern Frankenstein, modern ghosts, modern basically hunters who hunt all of those, modern mummies. It got weird and got out there, but it's still a lot of fun. But a lot of what they all kind of have to do with each other, the fact that none of your players do not exist in a vacuum. Much like with L5R, we talked about how your characters had obligations. The same sort of thing happens here, even though those are even more important. And so instead, the way we're going to approach that is we're going to look at this from a people perspective, rather than looking at this from a events perspective. Though any campaign, basically, you're going to have events. This basically World of Darkness in general, and this adventure in particular, really focuses in on the characters and keeping track. Basically, the biggest hurdle that the GM has to keep track of is keeping track of where everybody is, who is allied with who your characters have met with, who they have relationships with, etc., etc. So that's what we're going to talk about. So the adventure that we're going to be looking at today, one second, excuse me, is we're going to be looking at an adventure called Legacy of Lies. For those who are not familiar with it, it is a, let me go back to the cover page here. It is the Jumpstart for the Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition, Dark Ages version. So to break down that jumble of words into an actual understandable thing for those who are not familiar with it, Vampire the Masquerade is the base system. It is the urban horror vampires in a modern setting source book for World of Darkness. Which is the system we've been talking about. The 20th anniversary was a re-release that they did of essentially an earlier edition. So they went back and they had released some editions after, basically kind of after the initial popular version of it came out, and they released some new editions which had been more or less well received. And they decided that for the 20th anniversary they would go back to what was their big solid core product, and re-release those, tweak some of the rules, make it a little bit more streamlined, more playable. And so that's what the 20th anniversary is. And Dark Ages was a product for that original release. It's actually sitting on my shelf right over there. And it is basically taking that modern setting and rolling it back to a more medieval setting, basically dealing with what were vampires doing, because vampires, one of the conceits of the vampire game is that monsters and stuff like that have always been around. They've always been in the background. They've been manipulating politics for centuries and centuries, and now you're playing them in the modern setting. Well, they're like, well, actually, it's kind of interesting what actually happened during the Dark Ages. Basically, when horror and magic and the supernatural were literally behind every corner, and people believed in that, and were more basically these powers basically were more able to move around openly. And so they did a series of they had a Wild West version for werewolves. They had a Renaissance version for wizards, and then they had a Dark Ages version for basically for vampires. And so that is basically, and jump starts are, for those who are interested in trying this, basically trying these games out, the jump starts are a series of basically essentially what D&D calls the beginner box, Pathfinder as well calls their beginner box type stuff. It is a single module. Basically, it is 79 pages long, but it gives you a set of characters to play with, a world, basically an area that's set up, kind of a preset thing, and kind of basically gives you a condensed version of the rules that kind of cover everything that you need to know about this system. So if you're looking to, basically, if you're looking for a horror game to play over this, basically over the next couple of weeks, the jump starts that they have produced, they're available on Drive-Thru RPG, I believe, are a great way of getting into them, because they essentially give you everything you need to do. You could sit down, read through it, talk it through with your players, and hand them essentially the characters, and they'll be able to play through it. We'll actually be seeing this in motion, basically next week, or in the same basically on this same channel at the same time, as it were, where we'll be playing through this adventure. But before that, I need to get this set up. So, um, what are we looking at in this adventure? So, essentially, you have the basic rules, which are this thing here, and then towards the bottom, we actually have the actual adventure, as it were, um, called Legacy of Lies. And so, excuse me. What that covers is that essentially the players get put into a situation, where they are basically, there's a series of events that will happen. As you can see here, these are the events that will basically be occurring that the players will be expected to go through over the course of the adventure. But that really isn't the important part. Basically, what you really need to focus in on if you're actually building out, because as you can see, it's a fairly short event path, and a lot of basically some of these things are actually just kind of there. Like the prince's request is literally just a, oh yeah, by the way, basically here's how you start the adventure. And then basically paint it, basically ship to shore is just get the characters onto a ship. Um, Ambushed is a small combat thing, and then basically the major through line is those 4 events down the center there: A Prince's Request, Paint and Ash, Red Summer's Fair, and Reckoning in Chester. And so there's really only 4 events which are key to how this basically this campaign will flow, compared to what we saw, the 8 or 9 events in the L5R game. The events are still important. They will be essentially blocks of things basically that you're kind of moving the characters to and kind of shepherding them through. But what Vampire really wants you to focus in on is, okay, your characters aren't just existing in a vacuum. They will exist in this society, in this court system that exists, and they need to be able to maneuver through it, figure out what's going on, set up situations, deal with the consequences of those situations, and maneuver through and reach the end, so that not only will they basically fulfill their personal goals, as well as the goals and obligations which are placed on top of them. So let's look at a little bit of what we're getting into in terms of the uh, characters themselves. So we have a cast of characters. There is, you can see 4 over here on the left in this picture, and then another 4 here. So there are about 8 characters, which are the major players in this jumpstart. So let's go ahead and basically. So if we were going to sit down and create this out, I would quickly go through, and I'm not going to get into a lot of details in here, but I'm going to show you. I'm just going to give you more of a general overview over how this is all going to work out. One second. Excuse me. I seem to be a little bit burpy today. So create a character. So we have Marcus Varus, who is described as Baron of Chester. We have Robert Durand, who's described as the Baron of Edinburgh, or Edinburgh, to be precise. we have, and so these I'm going to copy and paste some of these because now we're starting to get into almost basically almost Celtic now. We have a Ventrue courtier. We'll get into a little bit more what some of these phrases I'm throwing around mean. Min Nefrit, a Bruja, that's right. Bruja Poisoner. Oh, I need to switch. I remembered this time that I need to do that. Bruja Poisoner. We have that template. Kate McLean, who is a Scottish Toreador. We have Audrin Dubois. The biggest fear I have while doing this is the fact that I'm going to be running this game, which will have historic French people in it, and I'm running into the game with an actual French person in it, basically. So I will have to be careful to make sure I do not attempt a terrible French accent because they will call me out on it. This is a Bruja artist. Now I need to make sure I spell this correctly. A Nosferatu spy. And we have Leopold Black, or Leofred Black, who is another described as a Toreador bard. And I have to show the picture for this one just because this guy's picture is crazy. Legacy of Lies. I've already uploaded all these. As before, I've already uploaded these images because sometimes that's the biggest pain. And getting, not uploading them isn't the pain, but extracting them from the document sometimes is the pain. They don't give you nice, clear images that you could pull out. Check out this guy. I mean, this guy is what they described as a bard. I'd go more jester, but you know, it's very colorful. Okay. I think that's it. So remember I was talking about the fact that basically unlike L5R, this is definitely focused more on characters versus events. Oh gosh, yes, Jester. I'm fairly certain was in the second edition Bard Handbook. Do I have a complete Bard up there? I don't think I do. I have complete Psionicist and complete Fighter and complete Wizard. I don't own complete Bard. But yes, I'm fairly certain that you're correct that that Jester is definitely one of them. But in any case, basically, we talked about the fact that there was really just 4 events, essentially, that formed a straight the through line. And here we have our main cast is 8 different characters. The second edition complete handbooks were a ridiculously good series of splats. But I digress. But basically the character list here is rather long, and so you have a wide list of characters here which you have to remember. In addition to that, you're probably also going to want to record what players you have, especially in a pre-start guide like this. You're going to end up with a couple of different. So let's just go ahead and We won't have actual player names because our players have not actually picked them up. But we have Alicing Doyle, who is a Bruja, I believe, nun. Yes, she is a Bruja nun. World of Darkness gets weird, yo. She's an Irish Bruja nun. We have Ibrahim Ayub. I am murdering that last name, but I at least got the first part. Who is a Toreador. Let's see, what's his? A Toreador socialite. Sure. Right, we go ahead and add that one in. Now, one thing I am not doing in here, that if I was actually not doing this building this out quickly for a stream, one thing I would probably do is I would definitely be adding a template for these for both the characters and the players. Because World of Darkness has a bunch of key fields which would be really good to keep track of. For example, if I show you the character sheet, you can see the fact that there are basically several key fields. Like up here, like the basically nature and demeanor are fairly important on a regular basis for the DM to call it. Basically, storyteller, not DM, for the storyteller to call out. These have to do with the nature is the basically the inner, basically how the character reacts. Basically, is truly on the inside, while demeanor is how they act on the outside. And both of those are important for how the story basically the storyteller can call upon them, basically saying, "Hey, your nature and your demeanor." Basically, this is basically kind of basically not quite forcing the player to act that way, but rewarding for the player for acting in that basically acting in that vein. Um, Basically in vampire, obviously important stat. Basically important things of vampire are your clan. Is an important thing to keep track of for that. Sire could also be something else that would be important because that indicates another link between characters. And basically things like humanity and willpower and other there might be other stats in here that you may want to you could either just list them as part of a description as a tech field, but you may want to call them out so you can quickly look up that information and see that called out rather than parsing through a text field or something like that. You could also, if you really wanted to get really in depth with it, you could add all of these talents and skills and knowledges as their own separate fields. Um, that was the point really of Lorelink is not to be a virtual tabletop. That has never been our aim with this product to create a virtual tabletop replacement. There are quite a few excellent ones out there. Roll20, Foundry, Astral, D&D Beyond is getting into that space as well. It's a crowded space and we don't want anything to do with it. What we are creating with Lorelink is a system for the DM, storyteller, GM, referee, chronicler, however you want to be, whatever title you're picking, to use to build out and keep track of their campaign. So getting back to this, because things like basically the complexity of just this quick start are really kind of basically kind of gives away basically kind of why I feel like something like why I created Lore Link, why I decided to get into this, and because it really feels like this is something that if you're just trying to track this with pen and paper or in pages in a notebook or have it help you if you're trying to track this in Roll20's. Roll20 has a great system for showing maps and rolling dice, but its system for creating actors and NPCs and things like that is not a good organization system. Um, no insult intended for the honorable competition, as it were. But it is not the best system for that. And so this is a system that will let you just go through, find these things quickly, look them up, and keep moving. All right, Ellen Bennett here. Ellen? Yes, that is Ellen. Ellen Bennett, who is a Ventrue Royal. For those of you who are not familiar with World of Darkness, basically how they basically are vampires in particular. How they kind of essentially they don't have character classes as D&D does, but they still coming from that same era of game, basically a tabletop RPG. There was still somewhat of a need to delineate people's abilities and things like that, and offer kind of not stereotypes, but slots that basically players could put themselves into to give themselves a better feel on how their character should act, should work in a basically type of situation, which is really kind of what the entire point of class, the D&D class systems and things like that. If you just give people a bunch of skills and stats, you end up with a lot of just kind of, especially first time players, they kind of look at the system and go, what the heck am I supposed to do with this? I have no idea how to, yeah. Do remember, eat food and also stay hydrated. But basically, if you just let them, basically, you get a bunch of stats and numbers and things like that, and it's harder to create the type of characters that you might want. You kind of just end up with you end up with kind of a mishmash of things, and so basically how world basically vampire in particular takes care of it is you have clans, and clans all have a particular set of powers and basically weaknesses that kind of help guide people who pick them into playing the characters in a certain direction. It by no means forces you that basically the only thing you can do is if you take this is to be this, but it does help to guide you. For example, so the ones we've looked at here so far, Ventrue tend to be the leader types. They're all about basically they are cursed with the horrible knowledge that only they are fit to lead. And so they must bear that burden of responsibility and rule it over, basically lord it over others. And that is their big, basically they're kind of their big driving factor. The Toreador basically have lost their humanity. And so basically, but still seek to reclaim it through works of basically through things of beauty, basically that they could never completely reclaim, like the taste of wine, an image of a beautiful sunset, basically a garden full of flowers, etc., etc. Uh, and so that is basically kind of what the Toreador are all about. And so they are incredibly emotional and basically based on they're your artists with artist temperaments, as it were. Speaking of temperaments, you have the Bruja, who are all about basically, where the Toreador is all about art and beauty, and they basically Bruja tend to be more basically, I won't say basically they're not brutes. They kind of got basically they definitely got kind of typecast that basically in their initial editions, but they are more to the point. They are kind of emotion. Basically, they are very definitely there are a duality between basically kind of a philosopher, basically like they're scholar philosophers mixed with guys who want to beat your face in. But they're very definitely kind of organized by basically kind of their emotions and their curiosity and their things like that, and they tend to lash out. Um, but especially at this time period, they are not 100% um, just brutes with clubs. Um, and then you also have this character who I'm not going to. Someone is going to have to take a stab in the dark and to pronounce this name because that's a Mongol name. And I am not up to date on my Mongol to be able to really give you a good pronunciation of that. But they are a gangrel explorer. Gangrel, while basically, while the Toreador are definitely still trying to kind of grasping at recapturing their humanity, Gangrel are more trying to recapture being a part of the world because they feel like their vampireness has separated themselves and they're trying to reconnect with the world and nature around them. So they tend to be a little bit more animalistic, a little bit more um, basically out there in the woods. They don't particularly want to deal with society outside of what basically the benefit society gives them that lets them live in the woods. Um, but that is basically the Gangrel, very definitely that kind of basically they're definitely your more animalistic, more hanging out with wolves and bats and other stuff. Um, Not werewolves though. Werewolves and vampires do not get along. And then last but sadly kind of least, we have the group known as the Nosferatu. I say last because it is just the last ones that they have uh, in this adventure. There are plenty of different clans, and much like the Bard handbook that we talked about earlier, where D&D was gladly selling you a complete handbook to give you new character options and new stats and stuff for every class. So too was White Wolf at that point, more than willing to send you hundreds and hundreds of small little paperback books about yay thick that were basically full of character options and things like that for different new types of vampires, new types of character options for vampires, for things in that vampire. The phrase "splat book" was definitely kind of used to describe that, and I don't know if basically one company started it before the other, or they both kind of got the idea at the same time that more books equals more money. And so during that time period, you ended up with uh, a lot of those different kind of basically producing tons and tons of tiny little books that they would basically the DLC of the time, as it were, physical DLC, literally. It's the idea of, oh, do you want to play basically wanted to play a Ventru? Well, here's a book about all about the Ventru and all about what the Ventru are up to and occurred basically in the world that you're playing in. And here's some cool new character options for Ventru and some cool new stats or items or gifts or abilities that you can have um, to play through at that. Um, so so now you have your five characters, which could be basically in the game, and you have your one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight different main characters, all of which are going basically can be interacting throughout basically throughout this campaign. And so basically the difficult part for you as a GM is to keep track of what all of these things are connected to. So, for example, let's make up some connections here. They may or may not be real ones. So to avoid spoilers, if those of you are worried about spoiling it, I'm not going to go too deep into spoilers in here just because of the fact that if people are watching this and they actually want to try it out themselves, please do explore, try new things, experiment. And B, because several of the players who are actually going to be playing next week are actually I know are in the chat and listening to this, so I don't want to give away too much before we actually start the game, but I do want to show off what Lorling could do. So let's go with the fact that Robert Durand here is the Baron of an area. And in this game, that means the fact of listening. I'm hoping you're listening. I'm just, not just talking into the void here myself. I'm actually talking to people. I'm streaming on the internet. It's fine. It's fine. We're all busy people. And so basically, you have this character, Robert Duran. You might be like, okay, I want to basically associate the fact that Leofrode Black, and let's say If I have to talk to the void on my stream, you have to talk to the void on yours. Yep, yep. It's the modern equivalent of dance like no one is watching, stream like no one is viewing. So basically you can add these and basically associate those. So now basically I can keep track of the fact that these two characters here are now associated with Robert. And if I go to Robert, I can see the fact that basically Min Nefret is now associated with Robert. And that gives me basically a quick way of keeping track of which characters are associated with what. I can look and go, okay, Robert Durant is this person. If I want to leave notes inside of here, I can put them in their description. I can talk about how egg and cheese taquitos, very tasty. And I could use our our quick and easy reference system to be able to go. I want to tag a character. I want to associate them with, let's say, one of the other characters. So let's go with Brain has just completely blanked all the character names. Of course it has. Thanks, Brain. Perfect round. Come on, game. Give me a name. I need a name. Leo Fred. Of course. How could I forget Leo Fred? It works for Leo Fred Black. I can't spell assassinate. Nope. I have spelled it so badly that even Google's like the dangers of typing live on stream. Thank you. Who says chat isn't worthwhile? There we go. Now I can add, basically, I can add a note for that they're attempting to do that. And now I have those links are built out right there. And if I click on those, I can take it directly to that character where I can basically now have, basically I can look up their stats or things like that. And so now I know that that links are built in right there. If the players do something, for example, I can also add the note that basically one of the players, I need, let's see, insulted by Ellen Bennett and is so now I can keep track of all of that just like that. And so I now have a simple note that lets me know who that character is associated with, basically what actions the players have done, and I can quickly just link back and forth and have all of those, basically all this information is available on one page right here. And if I need to look up additional information, I can hop to it. I can either hop to it directly and just click on it directly and get taken directly to that character or player's page. Or I can right click on it in basically in most web browsers and open a new tab, and basically be able to have both of their tabs open so that if I need to build this out, I can have multiple tabs on the screen at the same time, and I can quickly jump back and forth. So but this lets me, when I'm setting up for the day, I can just keep adding more tabs and be able to build all of these out in different parts of the system. Now, so one of the more kind of confusing parts about this whole thing. It could be the fact that a lot of times it's like we're kind of referencing here, this person works for that, or also it's attempting to secretly assassinate them. A lot of games like this have a lot of different secret societies in the background, and a lot of people are working for different people. And so you can end up with you're looking at a character like, okay, like we were struggling, like I was kind of talking about earlier. Okay, so Min Nifrit, okay, so she's associated probably with a clan. She probably has maybe she has a secret society that she belongs to. Maybe she's also maybe she belongs to a particular country, and I need to keep track of that. Um, and basically, and they have a whole bunch of mortals and non-mortal, basically, and vampires and werewolves and wizards and all sorts of different things, all mixed up into this one, basically in this one campaign. And you may want to quickly keep track of what is in what group. And so the easiest way to take care of that is you can basically we've added in Lorelink is the tag system, because while we have all of these things, like you have characters, you have creatures, you have villains, you have items, we have transportation, we can't possibly cover every kind of group that you might want to include in a game that you're running. Because we're system agnostic, we're not going to try to put in every group from every game that basically that comes out between now and the end of eternity. Also, you're basically, if you're running your own homebrew thing, if you have a Society of the Black Thorn or something like that, the Black Roses, or basically, the Three Rivers Society or something like that. Um, Obviously, we can't keep track of that, but maybe you want to keep track of that. And so that's what the tag system is for. So, for example, on this character, I can come up here to add tag, and I can quickly just say, I want them to be tagged as a vampire. And now they're tagged as a vampire. And if I click on that tag, I'll get taken to the tags, and I can see basically all of the characters I've tagged as vampires. So if I want to also associate several of the other characters, I can do that as well. I can also, if I go to the tags menu, you can see the fact that we actually we have a hierarchy system. So I can have a tag of basically that, a vampire. Maybe I also need a tag of mortal. Maybe I need a tag for werewolves. So now I have all those tags in case I have those different characters. And if I want to break down vampire, maybe I want to have subtags underneath vampire, so I could say all those clans we just talked about. Toreador, Ventru. Oops, I created that under Toreador. Don't worry, you can fix that relatively easily. So I could either remove the parent, or I could just change the parent just like that. Boom. See, I did that on purpose just to show off how easily it is to change that. Really. Uh Vampire Toreador. I could also add Ventru. Oops, the name. Gangrel, etc., etc. So I could quickly add all of those in. So Gangrel, Toreador, Ventru. Um, so now I have those tags, and I can now just go under each one of those and be like, okay, I want to associate some characters. Let's say this character is a Ventru. Let's say that character is a Ventru. And now I've got those. If I go to that, I can see the fact that they're tagged as Ventru. If I wanted to add the fact that they're tagged as Vampire in here, I could just quickly come here. You click on it. Boom, you've got it. And so now you're quickly building out that easy link. Much basically, so we've talked about a lot in the past how basically the point of lore link, and then I was just talking about earlier, the point of lore link is to make these things to best organize all of your thoughts and notes and things like that, so that at game time what you're doing isn't spending a lot of time looking through your notes trying to figure out where X and Y is, and then looking up things related on X and Y. That's the reason why we've added in the The location system has all those quick abilities to you can link rooms together so that when your characters are in a D&D game and you're hopping between dungeon and dungeon, or room and room in a dungeon, the basically location system and the location map lets you just quickly click through those. Just boom, 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 boom. Your character, you know what where you can go from that room. You know what's in that room, and you can find those items and things like that, and you can just quickly have that information on hand. Same with when we talked about L5R, we talked about events and the timeline. Same thing with the idea of the fact that you're wanting to keep track of those basically all of those events, when they happen in sequence. If multiple events are happening at the same time, you can use a timeline to keep track of that. You can have sub timelines so that, like in the case of this happens, and basically if that event happens, basically if the players have a branching path where they either, if you insult this character, you go down this path, or if you just give you make friends with that character, you go down this path. You could have two different timelines that branch off, and that's what the timeline system does. It lets you organize all of those. And here with the basically what we call basically essentially game objects, which are the creatures, characters, villains, items, and transportation. We have the tag system to organize all of those and make it much easier for you to jump between them and figure those things out. Though, let me clarify here that the tag system is much more powerful than just basically letting you tag game objects. For example, let's say that there is a particular castle that belongs to one particular court or another. You could say, the name of this castle is, what's its name? Boop, doop, doo. We'll give it a name. Castle Og. Good solid name. So we have Castle Og. And if I want to say the fact that Castle Og belongs to a vampire, in particular belongs to the Ventru, I can do that as well. So now, not only do I have the associated, okay, these are the people who are associated with the Ventru. These are some of the characters who are associated with them. I can also associate villains with them, items, they own particular things. I also have associated locations. So I know that Castle Og is basically one of their hideouts. Or one of their layers, however you want to phrase it. And I can track that down relatively easily, and I can tell the fact that, okay, that's how that works. Something else that basically the other thing the tag system is good for is, let's call it the Society of Ash and Bone. That's a cool sounding secret society name. May or may not be for the adventure. But so basically, so now the fact that I have this society, I may need to keep track of which characters in particular are part of the secret society and which ones aren't. So if I say that uh, this character is part of the secret society and that character is part of the secret society, I can quickly keep track of that. I can basically now when I look at this character, when I look at one of those characters. Let's go with Hayward. I could basically quickly, just by basically a quick glance across the top, I could tell that they're a member of the Ventru, that they're one of the vampires, they belong to that secret society of Bone and Ash. Basically, be able to quickly look that up at a glance, figure that out without having to do a lot of digging around through my notes to figure out, okay, because you might have the fact that they're part of that society buried in your descriptions. You also what clan they belong to, whether or not they're a vampire, are also could be possibly buried in your descriptions. You could possibly call that if you wanted to. Again, basically, we support basically however works best for you. If you wanted to, you could call out that basically what their clan was as a custom field. So if I wanted to say clan as basically a vampire clan as a custom field, I could just as easily add the fact that they are Ventrue right there. And so now I have that. And if I wanted to build that out as a template, I could make that. I could create a template from lore. Boop. I could associate the new template. Go ahead. So now I have basically a template that I can go basically I can look at. Do. I can call this a vampire character. And I can give some generic information, but now that clan information is filled out right there. I could save that. And of course, then I could break out this particular character. And break out their individual unique fields. Report here. Oops. That didn't save correctly. There. That's it. Okay. So basically you can see the fact that now I have that. Basically, I have that template I've created. And so now if I wanted to add new additional fields to that template, so basically we talked about adding nature and demeanor to it. I could add nature, demeanor. Outward appearance. Let's make sure we actually index these correctly so they show up in the proper order. So I've got all that. So now I've added them to the template. So now if I come to the character I created, nature and demeanor are now available fields on there and they didn't have to do anything to it. So all that is just set up like that. And so basically all of that is basically quickly accessible. So basically all that to say there are, but basically we don't want to force you in Lurlink to do things a particular way. So you can quickly basically you can have that as a tag up on top. You can have that as a custom field. All of those are available as options, so that you can look at it. Basically, you can splice it up however you want. And again, you can tag locations. For example, we also talked about events and things like that. And so we have those streamlined events. So, we have an event called, for example, a Prince's Request that we talked about earlier. We could have basically information about that there if we wanted to. Like, that's her description. Characters meet with the Baron of Chester. Boom. Save that. We could also add tags to this as well. So this is a vampire tag. Maybe you're meeting with a Ventrue vampire, so we can tag that there. Maybe the society is involved as well. We could add all of those tags, and you can see they're popping up there. And again, we go to this thing now. You can see the fact that we have associated event, and we can tell the fact that basically one of the associated events with the Ventrue is the fact that the characters meet with the Baron of Chester. We can then go directly to it. So if we wanted to look at everything involving the Ventru, so we were dealing with basically to see what exactly how if we're building this world out, if we wanted to see, okay, we wanted the Ventru to be basically we wanted, let's say for example, we wanted the gangrel to be very important parts of this basically parts of the story. So we go to our tags, we go to our vampires, we click on gangrel, and we come in here and we realize, well, maybe we have the characters associated that we wanted to keep associated, we wanted to have associated, but we didn't have any events associated with it, or we didn't have any locations associated with them. And you know how it is when you get down to when you get down into game time, and you're basically playing through a game, and one of your characters, one of your players, basically, if you don't do this planning, one of your players will be like, "Oh, so we want to go meet up with the gangrels. Where would be the best place? Where would the gangrels feel safe meeting? I want to make a roll to see where the gangrels will feel safe meeting." And you're left going, "Oh yeah, the gangrels are great at meeting in the woods." And so basically you wouldn't have basically if you didn't have this set up, you might not realize you hadn't done that. But on the flip side, if you then go, oh, I need to quickly create so basically camp in the woods. You quickly create a camp in the woods for your gangrels to all be at. And then you can just quickly go, oh, okay, I need to make sure I remember that. I want to associate that with the gangrels. So boom. And just like that, I've got it associated. And now the gangrels have a location associated with them. And I've taken care of that relatively easily. And I can do that relatively quickly during game time. As you saw, it took me less than 20 seconds. And you can keep talking with your players. Because again, that's the main point of Lore Link is the fact that you're not just it's not just a system that will put all your notes in, you can build it out, and it'll help you with planning and things like that. It's supposed to be that, but the big thing it's what we really want Lore Link to be able to do is allow you to switch from having to spend a lot of time pausing and hemming and hawing and looking at your notes to being like, oh no, I've got that with a few clicks, you pull it up and you're done. And you're back to the game, you're back to improving with your players, you're back to playing with them. You're also doing stuff like, hey, basically stuff comes up, a new character gets created, you're quickly creating a new character in here, you're quickly throwing those tags on there because you don't have a lot of time. You're like, oh, I need to create a default Ventru Lord that these characters went to go to talk with in the basically when they went to a tavern, who happened to be hanging out there, or Nosferatu spies skulking in the corners. And I wanted to create it. You can create it relatively quickly, tag it out, and you're done. And now when you're later and you're coming back later, you're like, what was that Nosferatu spy I created? You go to your tags, you look up Nosferatu, and you're like, oh, that one was the Nosferatu spy I created. I even associated it with basically you can, if you wanted to, you can associate with the location, the inn that you created, um, and you have all those associations and things like that built in, and it's all easily available and easy to do in a relatively short time. And basically just a quick series of clicks, you've got that out. And again, basically with the sessions that we've talked about earlier. So you have your early session 1, you have a date for that. You quickly create it out. And once you've created a session, you can go to it and you can add in those events, those basically. So you're like, oh, in this session, I want them to deal with the Princess Request. So it's good. You can have all these locations and events, and you can keep track of what gets associated, what gets built in, where the players are going, where you expect the players to go, and then where they actually went. Because a lot of times you'll be maybe setting up this when you're planning, and then you actually get to the session, and your players will pull a 360 and decide, I know that the Baron really wanted us to go to France, but we really feel like that there's basically the Irish character has a contact who will probably who has deep ties to both the English and French vampire courts, and they're a neutral third party. So if anyone's going to really know what's going on, they're going to know. So we're going to Ireland this session. And you're left looking, going, okay, so I've got to create a whole bunch of new locations, and I need to keep track of them, and I need to generate the contact for this player. I need to make a note to associate them. Maybe I gave that character a funny Irish brogue or something like that. What was I thinking of when I did that? So I can quickly come back to that brogue later if I need to, because the characters decide to go back to that character later. All that can be easily set up, linked, and built into here, and you can build it all into the session. And so now you have a record of everything that happened during the session. And then when you're coming back to it, because the group can't basically has a great, excellent session, and then it's October, and then November hits and people have Thanksgiving plans, and then December hits and people have Christmas plans and New Year's plans, and then it's January and you're back to playing again, and your player's like, okay, what happened last time? You have your notes from the session. You can look them up. You can quickly go through. What was I thinking when I did that? Yes, it is far too often that as a GM, you're left trying basically the beginning of a session is spent a lot of time there trying to figure out what's going on. There are a couple of tricks for doing that, for dealing with that. What was I thinking when they did that? In terms of one of the tricks GMs often use for sessions, things like that. So basically, because this is also about myself as a GM and planning and things like that, one of the easiest tricks to basically get your players, your games going is that you spend the first, you can either, you personally, basically, if you have a good set of notes like this, you can spend the first 5 minutes recapping it, basically, essentially rebuilding it up, basically, and allowing kind of telling the story back to the basically kind of doing a like an old serial, basically movie serial, things like that, bringing it up to speed. If you need to, tweaking a few things, so that basically, so you can kind of better push your players into the mindset that you want to have for this session, so you can focus on things that basically that happened in the past, which are they may have forgotten, or they may not have realized were important. That may not have happened last session, but maybe several sessions ago, but you need to bring back up because they're going to play a key role in this session. I've done that a couple of times where it's like, hey, okay, we're back to this area. Remember this character that you guys read. You guys had an encounter with this character and this character, and subtly kind of weave in things. Be like, oh yeah, that's right. That funny little guy over there who, oh, that's right, we were going to track him down later and talk to him because I think he had the key to X or Y. Is one way to do it. Another fun way of doing basically getting your players back at the beginning of a session is to, if you have players who are good enough at taking notes, and you don't have a situation like it's January, February, March, and everyone's just going, we've played this game before, I'm sure, but I have no idea what happened. Is you ask them essentially to recap. And what that lets you do is it lets you build the world out from their eyes. Whereas if you do the recap, you can point them in certain directions and things like that. What letting them do the recap does is it lets you see what they feel is important, what they're interested in, what they want to pursue, um, and uh, what stuck, what worked, what didn't work from the last session. So you can be like, oh, okay, I threw a bunch of stuff out there. Here's what stuck. Oh, okay, they really like this subplot. They really think the adventure is going in this direction, and they're really focusing in on this. Okay, let me work with that, because these are the things that, again, basically storytelling, as much as we talked about at the beginning of this, that basically systems like L5R and World of Darkness are more storytelling based systems. Uh, all of GMing and basically no matter what the system is, essentially a creative exercise with your players. It is a mass scale improv session with your friends with rules, and some basically with some randomness kind of baked in. And the key to any good basically improv session and things like that is kind of that yes and uh, basically mentality of I am not going to tear down what you think is working, what you think is good, what is causing you to have fun. I'm just going to build on it. I'm just here to take it and then I'm going to add my own twist on top of it. And then I'm going to hand it back to you and see what you produce out of it. And then I'm going to take it back from it. I'm going to take what you give back to me and build on that. And that's how basically that's how you keep basically everyone involved, everyone entertained. That's how you can get a that's how you get your really exciting adventures is the fact that you realize the fact that you were basically there are two kobolds in one of my adventures who are just there as just minor little background characters, um, but one of my players has had a blast essentially basically playing off their character as this haughtier doesn't can't deal with because he can't deal with these kobolds because the kobolds are pseudo dragons essentially, not pseudo dragons, that's a different thing, but they are really distant dragon ancestors who play themselves up to be much closer than they actually are, and they played their character up as the superior dragon scholar. And basically, given the way that she's reacted to them, I could tell the fact that she's having fun interacting with those two characters as being foils to basically kind of letting her show off her character's superior dragon haughtiness because these guys keep interacting with her and being like, oh, you're really a dragon, or oh, basically, we're the true dragons, or things like that. And so these two minor background characters who are literally just in the adventure for a block about yay big in the book. That's all they are. They never appear again. They're now important background characters that every time they come back to their base, she gets to interact with them because basically she's told me through this that basically she's having fun with them and interacting with them, and I want to encourage that. I want to, and I'm having fun role playing these characters and tweaking her character and keeping that interaction going. Um, and so that's one of those things where it's a two-way street and you have to listen to your players and work with what they do, basically work what they give you, even if you're playing a prefab module. Like those two characters again, they're a block this big in an adventure which is 5 books big, and it's this big. And I still basically I'm the GM, it's the world I'm creating, but basically the players are there to screw it up, as it were. If you want to if you want to create a perfect world, if your entire point to getting GMing is to create wonderful worlds that go exactly to however you plan them out, you're not GMing, you're writing. And that's a wonderful thing to do. And if you want to basically work with your own worlds and basically build them out, write books, write novels, have fun. Um, but I will warn you, basically, given everything I've heard from most writers, actually writing doesn't mean the fact that your characters will do everything you want them to, because occasionally the characters will take on their own personalities inside your head and will do their own thing, and you'll be stuck staring at the paper going, but that's not what I was writing. But in any case, GMing is definitely not for you, because GMing is a whole world of your characters doing different things, deciding to hunt different things or different priorities, of almost one-shotting your big boss because you decided that you were going to have him stand on top of a cliff and there was no way in the world your players could get lucky enough to, hey, can you stop rolling criticals? Ooh, I may need to rethink this. Or in basically another adventure. Hey, my characters became obsessed with a tattoo that basically my players became obsessed with a tattoo that one character had. This is actually I not in one of my games, but I basically there was a guy in an inn that a GM we were playing with basically had in there, just as kind of a one shot dude that we basically that he was just going to be kind of be a jerk, but he had a tattoo, and it went from being just a random dude in a tattoo with a tattoo and an inn to he was actually secretly a scout for a major world-spanning merchant trade secret evil organization, etc., which took over the campaign and took over several campaigns. And they've actually showed up in multiple different worlds and multiple different campaigns, all because of the fact that we as a player went, that tattoo must mean something. And now suddenly that's what you're end up with. And so that's basically all of that to say, again, coming back to kind of running that back to lore link, as it were. That's the point of lore link, is to let you build that stuff out, let you quickly jot down that note. And if you're someone with terrible handwriting like me, a quick jot written down might a week later, a day later, an hour later be an uncomprehensible scroll of, I think I wrote down the character's name here, and there's a important key fact I wrote next to it that I was going to remember that they were actually going to be something important later, but I can't read that. Or I lost that piece of paper. Or basically it's somewhere in my notes here. Give me a second. And basically Lorelink is to let you quickly write those things down, to quickly scribe, basically kind of write that information in, and then keep going with your adventure. Basically don't just basically don't interrupt the flow of your game. Don't interrupt the fun that you're having at the table, whether it's an online table or an in-person table, to deal with that situation. Or other systems we put in here, the rules reference system is just another extension of that. It's just another, hey, when your player asks you a complicated rule thing, that you knew was a possibility because you shoved them into water and you stuck them underwater and you knew someone was going to be like, okay, we start a fight underwater, or hey, I tried to grapple this guy, or hey, we're going to chase this kid down the street. What are the chase rules in this system? You've got those rules at hand. The rules reference system lets you create a link to them. You right click, you look up the link, boom, you're done. Um, and you're back to playing it. You're back to playing at the table again. Um, so that's basically, so all of that basically roundabout way, basically of all basically kind of what we all started with this, with the World of Darkness stuff. Essentially it's the idea of the fact that lore link basically is not intended for a particular system. Much like I told the story of this guy, I had played D&D for most of my life, and they're like, "Oh no, let's experiment. Let's do something weird." Or basically, the first GM I ran into is basically like, "Hey, I like running this system. Let's run this system." Um, there are many different approaches to how GMing works. Um, Basically, what works for a particular type of GM. Maybe you're a GM who likes writing detailed stories ahead of time. You want Lorelink to hold all those notes for that. Maybe you're a GM who basically wants to be able to jot quick notes down during gameplay, be able to quickly find them later, and basically be able to reference them. And that's all you're going to use it for, is going to be short sentences. Maybe you're more character focused, and you're going to build out intense political and secret webs and things like that, and you want to keep track of who is basically who is interacting with what, who is indebted to who, basically who has this complicated relationship with who, etc., etc. And that's what you want to keep track of. Or maybe you're running a L5R epic adventure where you have a series of massive events which are all going to happen. It's all going to build up to one big massive showdown, and you want to keep track of that. Or maybe you're just building out your average typical dungeon crawl, good old standard D&D Pathfinder dungeon crawl, where you just want to be able to keep track of, my characters walk into this room, what's in that room, what monsters are in that room, what exits are in this room, how to basically what conditions does this room have because they're on a floor with magic suppression, or etc., etc. That's all I want to keep track of. That's what we have the location system for. Um, and so it's building lore link out to be all of, basically to not, I like, it sounds arrogant to say to be all things to all those GMs, but to be able to be flexible enough to handle that, to let you run the games that you want to run, so that you're not fighting the system to do it. The system is there to help you and aid you and get you through it. And you can get back to doing what you want to do, which is to tell stories with your friends. That's all it is in the end. Maybe it's horror spooky stories, maybe it's epic fight, maybe it's epic encounters, maybe it's figuring out a mystery. You'll find basically whatever brings your friends to the table and basically makes you have fun. So basically we've reached pretty much near the end of the stream here. And so it's that time of the show where I kind of start to wrap up and I kind of explain what's going to be happening, what's going on around Lorelink. As always, if all my back rambling and talking has interested you and you want to see more of that, there are multiple ways you can do that. This video, once it is done and I actually remember to do it, will be available on Twitch for 7 days. And then after that point, Twitch yanks it away from you and says, you weren't really going to watch it if you didn't watch it in 7 days. So I will have downloaded it, and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, where you can watch it on there. And it will be available on there in perpetuity until YouTube decides to start deleting videos. Who knows? But basically that is going to be available on there. So if you're watching this on either of those locations, obviously the number one thing is, if you want to know more about it, basically follow us here on Twitch or subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll get notified when we have more videos, when I'm streaming again. Speaking of streaming, so what we'll be doing next in terms of streaming on this channel, in case you want to know why would I follow? Basically, the next time we play, basically we kind of talk through how I would build out this this quick start adventure behind the scenes. I'm going to finish building all of this out, and then we will have a group of people from the Lorelink team who will be actually playing through playing through this kind of this Legacy of Lies game. So we'll see how they deal with running through this, and you'll see a little bit of how I use Lorelink as when I'm running through the game. Because that will be available here next week, assuming that all the players are available. As always, just like everywhere else, even though it is partially my job, it is not necessarily everyone else's job, and so I have just as much of a hard time finding players as other people. But that is what will happen on this stream next week. And also coming up later on November 4th, I want to say, and I'm going to say that, and I'm going to be wrong. It is November 4th. Ha! I was correct. You'll actually see me and other people from Andromeda Galactic, which is essentially the parent company to Lorelink. Mike and Martine, who are the co-founders of Andromeda, have been helping me out greatly with building out Lorelink, that link that popped up in the chat. Lorelink.com is actually basically it will be undergoing a major facelift here soon, thanks to the people at Andromeda. And so we will be playing some sort of game for charity. When we play for the Extra Life charity, which benefits the Riley's Children's Hospital, which is here located in Indianapolis. And so we'll be playing, basically asking you to, if you are able to donate donate for the thanks, Streamlabs. Okay. Basically be able to donate and give money, which will go not to us, but directly to the children. So please, if you're able to donate for that or nothing else, just show up and basically have fun and join with us as we laugh and basically have a good time doing all sorts of wild and crazy things. I don't know what we're actually going to be doing. It says TTRPGs there. That might be what's happening. Sometimes it depends on who's available, whether we have enough people to run a TTRPG game. Sometimes we play wacky mini golf. Sometimes we stab each other in the back playing Among Us. Who knows? Could be anything. Outside of that, other things you could do, we have a newsletter, which is also on the lorelink.com website. Um, as I mentioned, the lorelink.com website will be going through a relatively major upgrade, which will have some cool features like roadmaps and story things and things like that. So you'll be able to give us your feedback through that. And of course, if you're interested in everything you've seen here and want to try it out for yourself, you can sign up for the alpha, which will give you the ability to actually play with it yourself and give us feedback directly from that. Um, so all of that to say, there are plenty of ways for you to keep basically contact us and continue helping us if you enjoyed what you've seen here. So looking forward to hearing from you, and we will catch you all later. Good night, all.